Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just hit the link in the show description to support now.
From the gas pump to the grocery store, inflation is everywhere. Seriously, make it stop. Thankfully, there's one company out there that's giving you a much-needed break. It's Mint Mobile. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton, with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. All plans come with unlimited talk and text, plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/switch. That's mintmobile.com/switch.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Cognitive Recalibration Podcast, where we talk about our favourite movies, TV shows, and video games. As always, I'm your host, Sravan. We have our co-host, Tarun, here with us in person this time.
Hey everyone.
And we have a returning guest. So if you remember our Nun review, we had Bhaskar on as a guest, and that was an interesting episode. Today we're going to be talking about Captain Marvel, so hopefully we're on the same page as this one. But welcome, Bhaskar.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. Consecrated and back from the dead.
So, Captain Marvel, we all just came back from a screening. We'll talk about that in a second, but as usual, I'll do my Who Am I, which is a segment which we introduced in the last episode. So, it's a comic book Who Am I. So, I will describe a comic book character at the start of the episode, and then I will reveal who that character is at the end of the episode. So, this week, Who Am I? I was born in a gypsy camp in a tiny kingdom located in the Balkan Mountains of Eastern Europe. My parents were both killed in my hometown when I was a child, and since then I've vowed to seek revenge on the world for the death of my parents. Later in my life, I found a chest of magical artifacts that belonged to my mother, and I realized she was a witch. I developed my immense talent in sorcery and also science, which eventually won me a scholarship to a school in the US. Determined to contact my mother in the hereafter, I invented an interdimensional communication device. However, there was an error in the calculations, and it led to the machine exploding and scarring my face. After that incident, I made my way to Tibet, where an order of monks helped me forge my metal mask to cover my face. I then returned to my hometown and overthrew the monarch and made myself the king. I continued to invent many devices when I was king, including a time machine. I am 6 feet 2 inches tall and weigh 225 pounds. Who am I?
I think I know who it is.
Okay. Do you have an idea?
Sort of an idea. I just know that this person's going to have a massive BMI. I just
Need to lose some weight.
Okay, so as we said earlier, this is an episode about Captain Marvel, so we're going to be reviewing that. But before we do that, I guess you know about me and Tarun, we're obviously big fans of the MCU. We basically started this podcast based on the success of the MCU and how much we enjoy those movies. But I guess Bhaskar, I'm interested to see what his experience with the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been. I know we've watched a lot of the movies together. So can you describe, it's been around a while now, since 2008. So
yeah, it's been a wild journey. I mean, I still remember the good days. We were talking about this earlier, about the Bryan Singer X-Men universe and how the early days of Marvel was just a kind of like a disconnected exploration into different characters, like Spike Lee's Hulk and
Ang Lee.
Sorry?
Ang Lee.
Oh, sorry, not Spike Lee. That's completely different. Ang Lee, yeah. Ang Lee's Hulk. Going from like really small threads to now the MCU. It's been a wild ride. What are we, like phase 3 now? This is officially like the 9th.
This is the 8th movie in phase 3.
Eighth movie in phase 3. That's ridiculous.
yeah, 21st movie in the cinematic universe.
Yeah, if we went back 10 years and like told your past selves, there'll be like 40 odd movies coming out covering basically the main groundwork of all the Avengers. I don't think we'd probably believe it. So it's been a quite an interesting journey cinematically.
Definitely unprecedented. I don't think it might not ever happen again. So other studios are trying to do what Marvel has done, but I don't know if they'll be successful because Marvel has really planned it well. I think they planned it to the T for the last 10 years, and they're still doing it. So, Captain Marvel, what do you guys know about the comic book character of Captain Marvel, or Ms. Marvel, as she was originally in the comic books?
What do you know, Bhaskar?
Well, I actually didn't know much about Captain Marvel. I remember hearing about a superhero named after the comic book franchise, and I thought that's a cheap shot. Like, that's just the comic book writers saying, you know what, let's screw the name, just name it after the company. So I didn't actually delve in. I didn't realize how technically complex or powerful that character would be. And I just doing my research, I was surprised to know that Miss Marvel or Carol Danvers is not the first Captain Marvel in the iterations. It's just down the track actually. So that was interesting to find out.
Yes. So I've got a little bit of background about.
Do you want me to say what I know?
No, we don't care about what you know.
Fuck.
No, go ahead.
You can say the background. Or I can say what I know and you can fill in the.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like you said, Bhaskar, she's not the first Captain Marvel. So there's this. It's kind of like in this movie, but there's a bit of gender swapping going on, and a bit of they've changed the law a touch. But there's this Kree scientist that comes down to Earth called Mar-Vell, and he kind of lives in disguise on Earth. And he's a scientist, and he's a Kree. He's not a Kree warrior. He's just a Kree scientist, and he's on an outpost in Earth trying to just figure out what life is like on Earth, I think, is what he does first. Is that right?
I think so. And he becomes a scientist of some sort.
I think he's a Kree scientist.
Yeah.
And then he becomes a scientist on Earth
Yeah.
as well.
And I think he initially does come to Earth with the...
intent of kind of getting the Kree to come to...
And also, I think, finding a key to winning the war against the Skrulls.
Against the Skrulls.
Yeah.
I think in the whole battle between Skrulls and Kree, the Earth is like a tactical... It's a good place to tactically have in terms of beating whichever race it is. So both the Kree and the Skrulls want to take over Earth, so they have that tactical high ground so they can overthrow whatever race they want to overthrow. But anyway, Mar-Vell lives on Earth, learns to love the Earth people. Carol Danvers works at the Air Force where Mar-Vell works as a scientist. And I think Mar-Vell dabbles in some superhero stuff. He kind of goes around and does a few superhero things, but he's not a full superhero. And then there's a massive explosion that happens at some point, and Captain Marvel's DNA, Mar-Vell's DNA, gets mixed with Carol Danvers.
Yes.
And then she becomes like this hybrid Kree human. And then she becomes Miss Marvel. And then she takes on his name, because I think he dies from it.
I think he dies, and then she takes on the Captain
she
Marvel.
takes on his name, which is why she's called Captain Marvel. She starts off as Miss Marvel, and then she becomes Captain Marvel eventually. And then there's another Miss Marvel now who's...
Yes, there's another Miss Marvel who's actually idolizes this Captain Marvel. Yeah.
That's interesting.
But I think that's the main part of it.
That's the main part. Yeah, you've covered most of basically all of the history. I just wanted to ask, how old do you think this actual character is in terms of in the comics?
Pretty oldish.
When you mean old, do you mean like
70s?
Yeah, is that towards like how old the comic book character goes back?
Yes,
When it first debuted. I think 70s or late 60s.
Yeah, I would say. I think I remember reading it was like something like 1967.
Pretty close. So the character of Carol Danvers debuted in 1968. So that was not as she didn't have any superpowers. She was just Carol Danvers. When she actually got her superpowers, it was 1977. And then when she became Captain Marvel, it's later than you might think, 2012.
Oh, yes.
She was Miss Marvel till then.
Yeah, she was Miss Marvel till then, and then she was Captain Marvel from 2012.
That was the series that was written by Kelly Sue DeConnick. I think that was the reboot.
I think so. I think that was the first iteration, but there have been multiple reboots of her since then.
Like every comic book character.
Yeah.
Yeah, just mentioning that name because it'll come back around towards the trivia section.
There multiple things have happened to Captain or Carol Danvers in the comics, and this movie takes some of those.
Take some of it, but
Yeah.
it's a lot of it's a bit different to what.
A lot of it's a bit, they've kind of done their own thing as well. So what I wanted to point out is the X-Men character Rogue, which you guys will be familiar with. She touches someone and she gets their powers. In the comic books, or you might remember from the 90s X-Men show.
Yeah, I was going to
Oh,
mention.
yeah.
Yeah,
Have you seen that episode?
I haven't seen it, but I remember watching that episode, and Rogue in that series can fly and she can shoot lasers out of her hands.
But
But-
she takes her consciousness, doesn't she? She takes her powers.
She takes her powers. So she
they-
ends up touching Miss Marvel, and she gets Miss Marvel's powers.
But then Miss Marvel's in like a coma for like 10 years.
for like 10 years, yeah.
Damn it, Rogue.
Because-
the 90s show was amazing. I still remember the opening theme. You remember
Yeah,
the theme?
so good. Yeah.
And it had freaking Gambit on like 10 seconds, and then he's nowhere to be seen in the entire Marvel cinematic universe whatsoever.
Yeah, he hasn't really. Oh, he featured in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Well, this is the shittest thing, but Channing Tatum's been attached to play Gambit for about 10 years. It finally got cancelled.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen anymore.
It's not going to happen. Yeah.
You could say it wasn't on the cards.
That was terrible.
It's a delayed one. There you go.
I just got it like a second after you said it. And her notable abilities in the comics, we see some of them in this movie, and we've seen them in other versions of the comics, as well as in some TV shows, like in that X-Men TV show. So she has superhuman strength, speed, endurance, and stamina, energy projection and absorption, and flight. Yeah, it's everything that a superhero would want. Okay, so I guess we'll get on to the review then, if we're done with Origins and comic books. So this movie, I'll give you some background on the movie itself. It premiered on the 27th of February in London, and it released officially yesterday on the 8th of March, which was strategically done to coincide with International Women's Day.
Oh, yeah. Didn't pick up on that one, actually.
So it's directed by Anna Bowden and Ryan Fleck. Their previous works are all sort of...
It's like TV stuff, isn't it, mostly?
They've done TV and they've done some indie films. So some of their movies are Half Nelson, Sugar, It's Kind of a Funny Story, and Mississippi Grind. None of which I've seen or heard of.
Mississippi Grind has Ryan Reynolds in it, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. And I think
maybe
Half Nelson has Ryan Gosling in it.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to double check if Mississippi Grind has Ryan Reynolds in it, because I'm going to look real stupid if he is.
So while you check that, this is not the first time that Marvel has picked sort of obscure directors to helm their big projects. So previously we've had John Watts, who was also not very well known, and he came and directed Spider-Man Homecoming, which was a great Spider-Man movie. Of course, Taika Waititi directed Thor Ragnarok.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And even James Gunn. So James Gunn wasn't a massive director before he made Guardians.
And the original, Jon Favreau, wasn't a massive director before he did.
Iron Man.
He did comedy stuff, but he didn't do anything high budget or anything like this.
Yeah.
Cowboys and Aliens.
And even
That was post.
That was Daniel Craig. Yeah,
post Iron Man.
Yeah.
even the Russos.
Russo's, they do a lot of TV show stuff, but nothing crazy. They tend to pick low-key directors most of the time.
I think they pick directors that have a passion for the character. So I think the two
Have they
directors...
ever picked a big director?
Don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
It's been a really nice, unique thing.
I think their selection process is really if they are passionate about the comic books or the characters themselves. Like James Gunn loves the Guardians of the Galaxy, and not many people even knew about the Guardians of the Galaxy, so they picked the right guy.
Guardians of the Galaxy. That was a big gamble, actually, because it was such a... You read the comic books and you think, such a hot pot of characters. How are they going to ever pull this off cinematically? And they just did it beautifully.
Yeah,
And the comedy was just perfect.
and I think John Watts did a really good job with Spider-Man, taking him back to sort of his roots.
Yeah, the youngest Spider-Man I think we've seen. The most accurate to the actual source material has been like a high school kid.
So in terms of cast, we've obviously got...
Just before you go into that, Ryan Reynolds was in Mississippi Grind. So
Thanks for that check.
that's
Tony.
one for me.
It's the first thing you've got right in this podcast. Okay, so cast-wise, obviously we've got Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, Samuel Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, or Mendo as we affectionately call him here in Australia.
Mendoza.
Is that Mendoza?
Yeah, like the candy. That's what he is to me. Hey.
We've got our favourite comic book actor, Digimon Honso.
Digimon Honso, he's just nailing the comic book movies.
Yeah.
He's in so many these days.
In a couple of weeks, he's going to be in Shazam,
Nice.
who was called Captain Marvel, coincidentally. So
Yeah, there was
Yes,
a bit of a,
yes, he
there was a
was.
bit of a legal dispute about that.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why they made the character Captain Marvel, I
Yeah.
think.
There was just going into that segue, there was a really interesting note here that the Fawcett company, which originally sued Marvel because of the idea that was crossing over. Before they sued them, the story was that the Captain Marvel had a atomic fusion with some older character. So every time Captain Marvel would turn into an older superhero, they would do so by saying the word Shazam, and then they would turn into the hero version. And I think that was what was actually originally from the DC comic side. So it was a crossover, and they weren't allowed to use it in the end. So they had to redo the Captain Marvel series, which is what we've heard now of the late 60s version.
That interruption just before was Sravan adjusting his
Yeah, we've got some technical issues here. Our mics are falling over all over the place.
I'm just eyeing mine as it slowly lowers itself.
They both have these
Self-esteem.
stats that keep lowering.
Other members in the cast, we've got Lee Pace, who reprises his role as Ronan the Accuser. And we've also got Lashana Lynch, who plays a pivotal role in terms of being Carol Danvers' best friend. We've got Gemma Chan, who we last saw in Crazy Rich Asians. She plays a role of a Kree. And we've got Annette Bening, Clark Gregg, who's back, and obviously Jude Law, which you would have seen in the trailers. So we'll talk about all of those once we get into the story. So before we get into the story, I'll quickly talk about the budget. Budget is 152 million. It looks pretty good. So
Yes, that's a pretty decent budget.
yeah,
Look, considering that opening Friday box office has already brought in 63.5 million. Apparently,
oh really? Okay,
on the Friday. Just in comparison, that's just beneath Beauty and the Beast, which is 63.8.
Yep.
Which is the best March opening, and that's underneath the all-time best, which is Batman and Superman for the March or the first quarter
100 million.
Yeah.
Pretty sure box office opening for Batman Superman.
The opening day.
Opening weekend.
Well, opening weekend, they're expecting this to do between 135 to 175.
Okay, no, wait, maybe it's 200 million opening weekend.
Yeah, I think it was because
it's quite big.
200. Yeah, it was 200. So this is expected to do 135 to 175, which is really, really good for this.
Good. I think it'll do quite well. Like, it'll do as well as about Wonder Woman or something like that. Not saying that it's only going to do well because it's a woman superhero, but that will bring a certain amount of...
I think certain people that wouldn't have watched a movie like this will watch it. I think. Yeah.
I think Wonder Woman was very clear in its marketing. Basically, has women in the name. Whereas Captain Marvel's pretty ambiguous.
Yeah.
It's all about the actual story of Carol Danvers. So it's definitely there is a crossover and that appeal.
Yeah. So because I watched this, I've watched this twice now. So I watched it on a preview screening first, and I went with a couple of friends, and they actually didn't know that Captain Marvel was a female hero.
Right.
They thought it was a male.
Did they not watch the trailers?
No, they hadn't. So they didn't know anything about this movie. So I said, yeah, we're going to watch this movie called Captain Marvel. And it's like, oh, what's his powers? What are his powers? And
they assumed her gender.
Yeah.
How dare they?
Did you just assume my gender?
Yeah, then I had to correct them. It's actually a female superhero, and the first...
Good work, man. That's already just making them address their own innate cognitive biases.
So I guess we'll jump into the story. Obviously, non-spoilers still. So we'll ask our guest to explain the story as we always do.
Yeah, because both of us don't want to do it. That's why we push it onto the
And
guest.
we're both not very good at it. So if
I'm pretty good at it. I stand.
I don't agree.
Do you
but
remember that one I did? That was really good.
which one?
There was this one time I did a really good one.
I don't remember
It
it.
was like Incredibles or something. It was good. Go back.
We should do a thing where it's like this really funny summary of The Wizard of Oz in a newspaper. It was coming on the TV guide, and it was like 10 words. It's like, girl kills the first person she meets in a new land, grabs a bunch of friends to kill again.
Yeah. So
It's just the most misleading kind of
it's
summary.
like,
We should try that for this one.
yeah. So what's the worst way you could explain this plot?
Okay. Air Force captain helps a terrorist insurgency to reclaim their independence.
I would say
Which is a really, really fast, strong way of saying it
Yeah.
without spoiling it. But
It's not inaccurate.
as a standalone film, if you haven't watched any other of the Marvel films, this is definitely still watchable. It just makes it more enjoyable if you know the other films and you've kind of interacted with
Definitely,
the
yeah.
lore. But yeah, no, so we're not doing spoilers.
At the moment, no. So we'll
Okay.
So yeah, you can keep listening if you haven't seen the movie.
So right, so in terms of the overall movie, it just talks about the backstory and you could say the coming of age story of Carol Danvers, who in this case is involved in a bit of an accident, but we don't really know her backstory, and
neither does she.
neither does she. So there's no way she could spoil this because we don't even know what's happening. And so the movie is just finding out who she really is and what has happened to bring her to this point. She's obviously very powerful. She's one of the most powerful, you could say, characters in the Marvel universe. But that's just a statement. How did she get to that point? What happened? And it goes into a larger story arc between two alien races. So where she gets caught up in is an interesting tale.
Yes. Yeah. That was a great summary.
That is like the most spoiler-free review you're going to get. You can watch the trailer; it will reveal more than that.
Yeah, probably will. Yeah. Okay. So we'll jump into our thoughts on it. I guess we'll talk about that. Before we do that, I was waiting the whole week to ask this question. Was the movie marvelous?
Wow! Wow!
That's all I have to say. That. Fuck right off.
Oh man, that's exactly what the marketing team would want you to say. It's marvelous.
You're not a dad yet, but that was a dad joke.
Yeah, I was
Very dad joke.
I was actually looking forward to this review just for that line. I'm just going to leave now.
Is it just the ones that I'm in? Because the Nun, you were like that was your score. It was like, what did you say again? It was like,
None.
yeah.
for Nun,
I
I've
give
got.
this a none.
Yeah, this is Nun.
How many people enjoyed the Nun? None.
And then I think my retort was something like James 1. Like, interesting things happening on that side. But yeah,
All right, so we'll talk about positives and negatives. We'll start with positives. We'll start with Bhaskar. What did you think?
positives. I thought it was a great origin story. They didn't, in every origin story, if you think about like Wonder Woman or Thor or something, the traditional screenplay or storytelling method is to go from, point A, B, C, D, and just tell it from beginning to end. Whereas this has a bit of a different approach. It's a little bit more Nolan-esque. If you've watched,
Batman Begins.
Yeah. Definitely. If you've watched any of his like movies, they don't necessarily go from, point A to point B in terms of time.
Yes.
So this was a nice way to keep the audience on edge. I thought it did a lot of justice to the source material. I haven't read the comics, but in terms of all of the established universe material, all of the reputation that Captain Marvel holds in the comic book universe, I felt they did pretty good justice to it. And just all in the small little references, the Easter eggs, the characters who we see in other Marvel movies. I think everything is a nice, neat little package. Definitely go and see it. Just keep your mind open about how this character is going to be interpreted. I wouldn't say like watching it. All the hype was that she's going to be overpowered. But while I was watching it, I didn't get that feeling until a certain point in the film. And I think that the development of her character is very much analogous to like that slow character arc. And I still don't think she's hit her peak yet.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think so either.
I think we might have to wait to see what happens later.
When you say peak, you mean how hot she is, yeah?
Possibly. You could take that interpretation. Yeah. You could take... If you're talking about literal hotness, yes.
Any positives that you had?
I think this is the best de-aging effects we've probably ever seen.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
definitely. Yeah.
CGI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Samuel L. Jackson.
I couldn't even tell. So Samuel L. Jackson's
His
basically
main role, yeah.
he's unlike the other Marvel movies where he's kind of in and out. He's actually
He's the second most important character
in
out
this
there.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably the one with the second most screen time as well. Yeah.
And I would say best one we've seen yet. It's pretty good in what movie did they have it in? Ant-Man?
Ant-Man, yeah, but that was still... It wasn't like a full-length thing like it was in this movie.
It was pretty good in Ant-Man, but this is much better. Better than the stuff we've seen in Star Wars as well.
Oh, yeah, that's...
Star Wars is basically pure CGI. Almost pure CGI.
Yeah.
This was uncanny. No, it wasn't uncanny. It was actually just not noticeable.
You couldn't tell, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was actually Sam Jackson, like all his expressions, it was still him.
Yes.
So you could tell that it was him
like
acting.
him on set.
Yeah.
But
I think a good comparison would be Captain America when they did Steve Rogers when he was in his emaciated form. It was that you could tell that it was like someone else's body.
You could, his head on someone else's body.
His head on someone else's body. But this was much better than that. It was like you could tell it was his face, his body, his skull.
It was perfect.
It was perfect.
Well, it shows how far the Marvel Studios has come, because that was a movie 8 years ago now. So
what? Captain America?
Captain America, yeah.
Which one?
The first one.
The first one.
Yeah.
The first Avenger.
The first Avenger, yeah.
That wasn't the title, actually.
The first Avenger. So that, from then till now, they've obviously really worked on
their tech. So yeah, that was really good. Story was pretty good. How this was kind of shot, the colors, I loved how colourful it was. It was almost Guardians of the Galaxy-esque, but not quite.
Yes.
But it's one of the more colourful Marvel Universe movies.
It is.
Because, a lot of people kind of complain that especially the Russo brother movies, they complain they look really bland and like very grey shaded, which, I can see it.
That's the style they've gone for.
Yeah. But this is super colourful, especially her outfit and everything.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And I think they had to make good attention to the color palette because it was set in the 90s.
Exactly.
And I remember the 90s as being...
very colourful and out there.
Yeah, saturated. Like really saturated because not just because of our memory of it, but it's like everything was much more, you could say, taken to the extreme. The color levels, it was a bit more exaggerated. It was coming off from the 80s. 80s was all neon and freaking, all the bright ass colors. So compare that to
saying that they did nail the 90s aesthetic pretty well, but they did beat you over the head with it as well. It was
It wasn't like nostalgia.
It wasn't full on assault with the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It wasn't like every 2 seconds it's a 90s reference or something. It was still its own thing, but they nailed the aesthetic pretty well.
Yeah. Yep. It's funny you mention that because there's a portion of this movie that's on Earth and it's based in the 90s, 1995 to be exact. And it actually reminded me of movies that came out. Just in the 90s. So it's based in LA as well. So there's 2 movies that came to mind actually. Terminator 2?
Yeah.
And Toy Story?
And Speed. Do you remember the movie Speed?
Yeah.
It feels like that. Like it feels like it was actually in that time. Because Speed is also in LA.
I had a very Terminator 2 feel when I watched the movie. Especially that one part when she... I was save for spoilers.
There was a direct reference to Terminator.
You got me.
Yeah.
There was also a direct reference to Toy Story. To Buzz Lightyear, specifically. It's the part... It's that part where she's just saying her name to Star Command. On her little
yes.
And I thought that was a direct reference to Toy Story because it's
But it's got 90s,
It's 90s and it was released in 96, so it was a pretty close one.
Yeah, so they nailed all that. I think those would be the main positives for me.
My positives I agree with everything that's been said.
And one more.
Yeah.
Brie Larson is the best part of this movie, I think. I think she was better than I thought she would be as Captain Marvel. She brings like her own character to it. If you've seen 21 Jump Street, she's like a very funny person in that movie, and she brings a lot of that into this as well.
Yeah, she's got her own kind of sense of humor. She's very disarming.
Yeah, it's different to. It's almost Tony Stark-esque, but it's different. Yeah. It's not like ripping off Tony.
So there's a lot of people that actually don't like her in this movie because they think she's too wooden. And not, she isn't. Like from what I saw, she isn't.
That's her comedy. I think. It's like she's all people in real life are like this. They're very like disarming, like you said.
Yeah.
Just like use comedy as like a defense mechanism almost.
Yeah.
She felt very genuine to me. Like
yeah.
Like even in her arc of like getting her memory back, at no point was she like, this is who I am. I am the greatest person. Like she was never
It
like
felt natural.
overly. It just felt natural, and I think I understand the criticism, but I don't think it's necessarily warranted here because it's something we haven't seen before.
No.
Yeah.
We haven't seen. We've seen something like in the form of Gal Gadot, where she's a little bit naive. Maybe a lot of people said that her performance was great, but she was a little bit too fresh. She purposefully fresh faced because she was believing in all that mythology and stuff. Whereas you compare it to someone here who's like a pilot and flying jets for the United States Air Force.
She's almost like Ryan Reynolds-esque. If Ryan Reynolds did this performance, people would say that's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's kind of the same kind of dry humor where she's disarming and like she's cocky almost. But
right. And she doesn't compensate. Like if you think about the 80s where you had all these shows about Air Force, all the jets, all the kind of Navy pilot movies, Top Gun, for example, right? And every character in there is like super masculine. Yeah. Like Iceman and Goose. They're all just like, freaking just right in there with the masculinity. And the female characters have to amp it up just to match it. She didn't do any of that. She was just her own kind of character. The backstory kind of helped fill that void. Yeah, I reckon she did a great job. I can't fault her or anything, really. Yeah.
I actually agree. I think she was really good as well.
I'm keen to see how she interacts with
the other characters.
That's
Yeah, I think everyone wants the characters to be like Tony Stark for some reason.
Which was what Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
I like Doctor Strange, but he's just Tony Stark.
He's just
magic. Yeah.
So every character should be their own character. So there'll be charismatic characters and there'll be characters that are less charismatic. So
I found her really charismatic though. I thought she was pretty compelling and she's funny in a different way to like Tony Stark.
And even with Captain America, initially I wasn't that on board with him, but as the movies they made more movies with him, I've been more and more.
Captain America goes well when he's interacting with other people, whereas in the first movie it was just him.
Yeah.
Which is why it felt a bit odd.
And I think Black Panther is the same, because in his own movie, I didn't like him that much. But in Civil War, I liked him more.
When he's interacting with other people.
I can relate to Captain Marvel. I think it took me a hard time to get used to him because I was half expecting him to combust into flames because of his appearance in Fantastic Four previously as being Johnny Storm.
You mean Captain America, but...
yeah, Captain America. Yeah. Captain America. It was just... when you use the same character the same actor in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you got to be careful. You got to be really careful to distance the same kind of style
from the other one. Yeah.
I think they've done a good enough job.
Well, Johnny Storm in that Fantastic Four movie was kind of like a Tony Stark-esque character.
He was, yeah. So Steve Rogers is basically the opposite of Tony Stark in every possible way.
Every possible way.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm done now. I'm all done.
In terms of positives?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm actually done this time.
Okay. The only thing I'll add on top, you actually stole my thunder. I was going to talk about Brie Larson, but you took it. The other thing I liked, which you guys haven't mentioned, was so this is set in the backdrop of the Kree-Skrull War, and I actually really liked the Skrull effects. I thought they were really good too, and just their story as well. It was there's a bit of mystery about it, and
Mendo's good, isn't it?
Mendo was good. Samuel Jackson was good.
Yeah.
But Mendo as the Skrull was good.
Yeah. He's got a Australian accent, a very
bit over the top.
Yeah.
I don't think that's his actual accent, but they told him to put it
on. Yeah. Well, it has to be different to the Asgardians, who all have Australian accents now.
Yeah.
See, Asgardian, I can kind of understand it, but when you're talking about like an interstellar race of like shape-shifting...
Are they all Australian?
Are they...
His wife didn't sound Australian.
Didn't sound Australian. Like, how does a green alien sound Australian? This feels a bit Star Trek-y, but okay, that's fine. Ben did a great job.
Yeah, he was good.
I had no idea he was Australian actually until today. I was just like, oh, this natural accent is pretty good.
We'll jump into the negatives. I do have a couple, so I'll start with the negatives. So you guys can steal my thunder.
Steal your thunder. Yeah. No, I want to jump in with my negatives first.
So the action sequences they were fine, but they weren't like adrenaline rushing or anything like that for me. They were fine. They didn't have the same level of suspense that some of the other action sequences in the Marvel Cinematic Universe have. For example, like the Thor Hulk fight in Thor Ragnarok. I thought that was a really good action sequence. This doesn't have anything like that.
Some of the stuff in all the Russo brothers movies as well.
Yeah.
Basically all the Russo brothers movies have great action scenes in them.
that's a small drawback, not a huge deal. I think the main purpose of this movie is to introduce you to the character of Carol Danvers, and they've done a good job in that. The only other thing was I would have liked a bit more of a backstory to Carol when she was human. It's kind of shown in montages, but you never actually spend that much time with her when she was not Captain Marvel.
Yep.
So that's one thing I would have probably liked a bit more, maybe just 5 minutes of it. But overall, they're not big negatives, really. I enjoyed the movie. So did you guys have any other negatives?
I think what you just listed actually was something that touched on my feeling of the movie, because they went with a Memento-esque kind of story of filling in the present first and then the backstory eventually. They sacrificed the opportunity to have a bit more of a nuanced world-building exercise where they could actually say, oh, this is Hala. This is the, they did it in subtitles on the bottom, which is lovely. I love that.
And it was very Guardians of the Galaxy-esque.
Yes, and even they had codes on the bottom, and Guardians of the Galaxy.
They even used the same font as Guardians.
Same font, which I love that touch. It made it feel automatically like, okay, I'm in this world. I wonder what other worlds are nearby, and it did that a few times, which was great. So this should be going on the positives. The world building was great, but in terms of sacrificing the traditional storyline or the storytelling technique, you miss out on a lot of backstory. You miss out on a lot of.
It only kind of becomes apparent when they try to go for this emotional. There's an emotional scene which you're meant to connect with. I did connect with it, but I think it would have been a bigger connection if we had a little bit more backstory. I think you guys know what I'm referring to, but there's this character of a best friend, and there's some scenes with her which would have had a bigger emotional impact if we had a bit more backstory.
And I think it was done intentionally and for a purpose, so that it didn't just spoil the crux of the ending of the last act, which was good. One other small criticism I would make is, I know it's introducing Captain Marvel, but I felt. And I think this is also kind of shown in the plot. She was really kind of restricted in how much power she could output for, I think, right until
about 90% of the movie.
That 90% of the movie. Yeah. And when you watch Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, and you have this kind of you have this character who is just almost unbeatable, but somehow the whole team kind of comes together and finds a way just to go over that pinnacle and just kind of overtop that power level. This one didn't feel as satisfying, but it was a good show of what she's capable of, and I think we're not going to get a real taste for the real potential of Captain Marvel until Avengers Endgame.
Anything in particular that you had in terms of negatives?
I think it's like similar to what you guys were saying in terms of the payoff in the end wasn't too great, is what I think we're all getting at, in terms of the story kind of was building to something, but in the end, when it builds there, you don't really feel it all that much. And saying that the stakes weren't too high as well. You never feel like anyone's in any real danger at any point, mostly because Captain Marvel's so overpowered, I guess. And there's never a point in the movie that you feel there's someone that could beat her easily. So that kind of just, the stakes aren't very high, and the payoff isn't that great. I would say overall the story wasn't amazing. It's more of a introduction to Captain Marvel, which is good leading into Endgame. I'm glad this has come out so close to Endgame. If this came out like a year out of Endgame and we still had a long time, I think I wouldn't like it all that much.
I wasn't that excited for this movie about a week ago, but then as I was walking to the premiere and sitting down in front, knowing that I'm going to watch Captain Marvel in a second, like the excitement I felt was almost like the excitement I felt before Infinity War. I was pretty hyped because it's been a while since we've had Marvel. Last one was Ant-Man and the Wasp, and that was July last year. So,
oh damn, it's been that long.
Yeah, so it felt like we're back. Like it was a good feeling.
But the payoff in the end, I felt wasn't as, the hype was good, but going in at the end, you're like, I wish there was just a little bit more in there.
Yeah.
And because this is set in the 90s, there's also this inherent question of, where has she been all this time? And kind of question. And I'm sure that'll be answered. But
the other thing about the 90s is there's certain characters in this movie that are in movies past this. So it ruins the stakes for those characters as well. Nothing bad will happen to them.
That's
right,
true.
Right, because they're still alive.
They're still alive, yes.
Yeah. And you're assuming it's the same universe, it's the same Earth.
Exactly, unless something crazy happens. But it kind of... It's a drawback being set in the 90s as well as a a plus point in terms of they could do whatever they want in the 90s because there's no other superheroes, but also you know where some of the characters are going to end up.
It's kind of the problem that Solo or Star Wars Story had in terms of no stakes, because you know exactly. You know the lead character's not going to die. I enjoyed this movie more than that, but that movie wasn't very good. So,
but yeah, it suffers from some similar problems, I would say.
Okay, do we have anything else to say before we give our ratings and we'll jump into spoilers? Do you have anything to add?
I'd just like to comment on the fact, I don't know if we're going to touch on this, but the fact that the absolute beating this film is getting on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know if we're going to touch on this, but it seems that there's a big discrepancy between like what the official rating is from, and I'm just using Rotten Tomatoes as an example, what the official rating is from the critics and what the audience rating is.
But I think they removed that now.
I think there was an issue prior to the film's release where you can say you want to watch the movie or you don't, like you're interested,
right,
or you're not interested.
But it wasn't just Captain Marvel that it affected. It was also the upcoming Star Wars movie, and they just got an absolute beating in that. If you go on Rotten Tomatoes, you see the fresh Rotten score, and then you see this thing on the side that's like percentage people who want to see this.
Yeah,
and it's just an upvote or a downvote. You want to see this or you don't want to see this. And most of the time you go in there, whatever movie it is, it's like an 80, 90%. I want to see this. Otherwise, why are people going in there anyway?
Right.
But yeah, for this movie and for Star Wars, they got down to like 15% or something because people were just making multiple.
They were just bombing,
downvoting it.
Yeah, but since it's been released, they removed that count.
They removed it before it got released.
Yeah.
On all movies. And they're not going to bring it back.
Right.
Basically.
And now the only thing that stands is the current, just the casual...
The audience score.
On that. And maybe, Sravan, you can go into the details as to why the audience score is so different to the actual official critic score. But the disparities, the current critic rating is 81%, which is probably about where I'd stand with this film. Audience rating is 37%, so that's a 44% discrepancy. And that is the largest discrepancy in the entire MCU right now. As a contrast, the most positive discrepancy is the Thor: The Dark World, which was given 10% more by critics, by casual critics. But why do you think this? What's happening with the?
So the reason behind the negative backlash for this movie is something Brie Larson said in I think it was a press meet or something. She was talking about this movie, but she was basically taken out of context. I don't know if someone asked her a question or what happened, but she was talking about how there's a lot of white male critics.
I think she was just talking about the question was worded in a way to get an answer that would be taken out of context and be a bad thing.
Yeah.
So and it was basically about like the underutilization of like women in film and other areas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, she basically just said there's too many white male stuff.
Yeah. So she was just saying. She didn't word it great, which didn't help her cause, but
saying that, she probably a couple champagnes in, it's premiere night, she's just trying to have a good time, and then people asking her all these serious questions. So, like, you can't really take that as her actual opinion.
No, but I think all she was trying to say is there should be more diversity in terms of the people that are film critics. There should be more non-white males that
more
are
diverse. I think. Yeah. Specifically, she also said there's like underuse of women in everything.
That is true. Yeah. But so because of this statement, purportedly a lot of angry young white males maybe have come out.
Yeah, so they've just come out and they've just before this movie even came out, they were like talking about this movie it's not gonna be good. It's just gonna be this like feminist piece, and that let's just not watch it. Like we're not interested.
And the problem with Marvel movies is there's a lot of people that love to hate Marvel stuff as well. So you get these like DC fanboys that are hating on it. Then you have this other group of white males that are like, DC,
even if that's true, they can't say shit with Wonder Woman is probably the biggest statement.
You'd be surprised. You should see some of the DC fanboy. I don't mind DC films. I know I sound like a Marvel fanboy.
If all DC fanboys could just write into the show after this, that'd be nice.
Yeah. But yeah, there's some pretty funny posts on. I'll show you them later. Yeah. But yeah, DC people hate on Marvel.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole other group of people that have started hating on it as well.
Oh man.
and then it just all together.
And it's become more than the movie. It's become more of a personal attack on Brie Larson as well. Like they just don't want this movie to do well because they don't like her.
Ever since it started, the first trailer, they're like, "Oh, Brie Larson's not smiling enough in the trailer."
Yeah.
It's just been stupid shit like that against Brie Larson ever since the first trailer kind of dropped.
I think there is definitely a higher standard to which even I subconsciously put on a lead female actress, which is taking on such a big role, that I would give to maybe like Robert Downey Jr. when he first did Iron Man. I remember when he did, I was like, yeah, he's going to do fine. Just be himself. He'll be great.
Well, I actually, because of his history, I didn't think he was a good choice, but he was obviously the best choice that they made.
Yeah, at the time.
Because he was on cocaine the whole time.
So for the record, we can say this film is definitely. I didn't think it was a feminist power piece.
No,
It's not.
That didn't come across at all. There were definitely times that
there's scenes towards. I noticed it more on the second viewing. There's scenes towards the end, which can be interpreted as being like feminist.
But it's a woman in a powerful situation.
Yeah.
It is going to be
But-
feminist to a certain extent.
For me, what
But
it felt
it's not shoving it down your throat as a feminist movie.
For me, what it felt more like was just they didn't talk about her as being a woman. Or there's one mention of her being a woman actually in the whole movie. The whole thing is just about being human. They talk about her being human.
And it's also the way they show it is they show the challenges that she personally has gone through to get to the level that she's been at. She goes through the USAF, the Air Force, the training and all that extremely high physical requirements, mental requirements, the caliber you got to rise to. They show that really, really, really well in the film without ever even making it like too much of a.
It's not shoved down your throat as like a.
It's not a statement. And that scene you're talking about, it's definitely more about humankind.
Yes.
Yes.
Than being a woman.
Yeah, being a woman.
But saying that, when you watch let's say you're watching Thor and you see Chris Hemsworth going around being a hero, for men, it's kind of like a empowering thing as well. Like, it's not super empowering because we're not Chris Hemsworth. But,
We're never going to be him.
but it's like a similar feeling. It's not
Definitely,
like,
yeah.
It's not like it's supporting men over women or anyone over anyone. It's just supporting kind of humans, I guess.
Yes.
It's a similar thing.
No.
This.
Yeah, I think it's good because, I mean, there's superheroes that I can relate to, not in terms of the superpowers, but in terms of their characters, I can relate to some of them, and it'll be good for women and girls to have someone to look up to as well. So,
Which character do you relate to the most?
Hero.
It's a personal question.
it's a good question. There's parts of Peter Parker that I relate to. There's parts of Tony Stark that I relate to.
Ned.
Who's Ned, as in Peter Parker's friend.
Yeah, do you relate to Ned?
I thought that was your answer.
So yeah, there's I don't really relate much to like characters like Thor because he's basically a god. So it's but there's the more human characters like Tony Stark, Peter Parker, even parts of Bruce Banner,
Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Ant-Man's very relatable.
Ant-Man, Batman, parts of him. So
Yeah. He's crazy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'd say I don't know why the Marvel films have always been something like for me like they're nice to read. DC though has really kind of struck me personally, where it's like, oh crap, that's I relate to this character, that character.
I find it the opposite actually. I find Marvel characters more relatable and DC characters more on kind of like godly level.
Right.
I feel like, oh shit, these guys are crazy.
Well, it's really only Batman that's not a god.
Even Batman is like crazy in terms of the shit he can do. So.
Yeah,
I remember really good things. I think DC, all the DC heroes, the stories are based off of actual heroes trying to be normal people.
Yes.
Marvel is people trying to be
heroes. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But anyway,
we got diverted a bit. But while we're on the topic, what superheroes do you guys relate to?
So this is a tough one.
Plastic Man.
A little bit of Sandman. No. Definitely a bit of Peter Parker, given that was the only one who I used to read when I was growing up. And yeah, Batman, Bruce Wayne. A lot of different themes. My parents are still alive. It's perfectly fine that way. Just in the themes of how he views the world and how that is constantly evolving and changing, and that he's just that whole sense of disenfranchisement of of I'm not going to leave it to another entity or authority. I'll just do that myself. Not in any kind of personal sense, but in the more like the moralistic sense of, well, what is the ideal kind of step you would take? So yeah, definitely a lot of DC influences.
To clarify, people might take this out of context because that's what people do these days. I relate to Tony Stark, not because he's arrogant or anything like that.
Because he's an alcoholic.
And so am I.
Because he's into redhead. No.
Stop drinking, man. Come on. Put the scotch down. Put it down.
Why do you think these podcasts are so entertaining? It's more that he's always trying to innovate, and he has that in his mind. I'm nowhere near as talented or as intelligent as Tony Stark, but I always like to improve things. I like to. I never think that things are the best way they are. I like to see improvement in everything. So that's something I relate to him in terms of Tony Stark. But Peter Parker is, he's a high school nerd, so I could relate to him when I was at high school. How about you?
I think the one that everyone always says is Peter Parker because he's the most relatable superhero ever made, possibly.
Probably.
He has a normal job outside of superhero stuff, and it's like juggling that. It's kind of what you feel when you're growing up, like juggling being a student, playing sport, and like learning and all that shit.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so relatable.
Yeah, and it's also explains why he also sells the most merchandise out of any superhero.
Oh,
yeah.
And yours is a bit of a meta one because Peter Parker looks up to Tony Stark.
So you
That's true.
So you look up to yourself.
Myself, yeah. There's a part of me that looks up to myself. Yeah.
That's nice.
Is there anyone else? Not really. I'm not really. Yeah.
The Beast.
No, yeah, because I'm pretty hairy.
It's inside. Just look out.
No, I don't think there's no one. There's parts of every superhero that I kind of can see myself being.
Yeah.
I'm very Ant-Man though. I make stupid jokes and
I can agree with that.
Yeah, I'm not Hank Pym, but more Scott Lang.
Scott Lang.
Yeah. Scott Lang, yeah.
There's obviously superheroes that I look up to, like Captain America. I can't really relate to him, but he's seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, if we have a Captain Australia, sure, bring him in. I'll look up to him.
There is actually a Captain
Britain.
Captain Britain.
Yeah, there is a
Captain Britain. Jeez.
Yeah,
coming from my actual descendancy, I think that's the best way to go.
All right.
There's not enough. There's no Indian superheroes, from what I know.
Well, on that topic, there is a Pakistani.
Well, Ms. Marvel.
Ms. Marvel.
Yeah, but she's not Indian.
We're going to get a lot of inbox. I am number one fan listening to show I boycott now.
This is going to turn into the ICC Facebook page.
Yeah, we're actually funded by the BCCI.
Yeah.
This is going to go in.
Okay, we'll get back to Captain Marvel. We'll leave Miss Marvel for another time.
We could actually talk about her at the end of this episode because there's some rumors. Yeah.
Yes, there. Yeah. We'll get to our ratings. So last episode 2 episodes ago, we introduced an Infinity Stone rating. So we go through it's
very stupid.
Yeah, but you'll enjoy it. There's we go through the 6 Infinity Stones and we say whether this movie has those stones metaphorically. So, for example, the Soul Stone. If a movie has a soul stone, it means it has a bit of heart.
That's clever. That's not too bad. That's pretty good.
But some of the other ones are a bit more stupid. So to get the space stone, it needs to be in space for a certain amount of time.
Which this movie definitely is.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good requirement. Actually, that's not too bad. Yeah,
and
space.
It needs to, for the time stone, it needs to jump through different time periods.
Yes, it has that. So it's got time jumping.
Okay, but let's go through them. So we've got Space Stone. Has
Space
that.
Stone, absolutely,
has
yes.
a Time Stone. Time Stone.
Time Stone, yes.
Yep. For the Power Stone, it needs to have someone who's pretty powerful in the
or some sort of action oriented, which it does.
Yeah, which it does. It definitely does.
Yeah.
Definitely does. So non-spoilers, still it's okay. Still does.
What are the other ones? Mind Stone. It needs to make you think a little bit.
Think a little bit. Well, it wasn't. It did have a it did have a kind of what do you call like a double plot where you weren't really sure to trust a particular enemy.
Yeah, there was a bit of mystery around.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was still on guard. While watching it. I didn't really think that it was gonna.
There was there were some twists that I didn't see coming.
Yeah.
For sure.
So
There
I
were
think-
some that I did.
I don't want to sound like I'm up myself, but I did see all the twists coming.
All right, we'll talk about it in spoilers.
Let's talk about all the twists. I don't know what is the most technically mind-boggling Marvel Cinematic Universe film like that really made you think. I think that's a good comparison point.
Really made me think.
I'd say Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange, yeah.
The Black Panther made me think in another way. Not story-wise, but more in terms of society-wise.
Oh yeah, society-wise. Yeah. I was just thinking like in terms of
more of like a civil war or something.
They're not massively like...
I don't think there's any Marvel movie that makes you think a whole lot.
They're not Inception. Like, none of them are that level of...
None of them have like intricate plot lines or anything like that.
'cause you got to keep in mind the target audience is still.
If you add Infinity War and Endgame together and make it one movie, I reckon that would be a thinker.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So in that sense, speaking, I think mind-wise, it's pretty straightforward.
Yes.
Pretty okay. So I don't think mind would
I
apply.
would give it like a half.
Half mind.
I'll give it a half, yeah.
Half a mind.
Half mind.
So you can switch off half your brain.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. You can just watch it casually.
Where are we at?
Soul? Does it have soul?
Reality
soul,
and
doesn't
soul.
have soul.
So what's the reality?
Reality does it feel real?
Does it have enough grounding?
Does it make you believe the world is real?
Does it make you feel like this could happen?
Right. No, but it's still set in real world Earth, 90s.
I think the 90s aesthetic nailed makes it get the reality stone.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I think because of the period it was set in, compared to something like Guardians, where very little amount of screen time is spent on Earth. It's very, very kind of fantastical. So you really have to stretch out for that one.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd say it gets the reality stone. So.
And the last one, Soul.
Soul.
I think it definitely aims to get the soul. Whether it gets it or not
I'll
is...
say half.
I'd say that it is a crux of this movie because it's that journey of finding out who she is. It's done in a different way, but I'd say there's room for improvement in that.
I think
kind
if
of
it did have, like I said in the negatives, if it did have that backstory, I think it would have got the soul. I think it just
I think it has half.
It has heart. Like, there's definitely moments that you feel emotional. There's no doubt about it.
Also, I was thinking there's two reasons this movie has the space stone, which we can go into.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about now. I was going to say it.
So in the stone count, we're 5 out of 7. Sorry, 5 out of 6 because we had 2 halves.
2 halves.
4 out of
4.
4 out of 6.
So it's got
sorry. Yeah.
It's got the space. It's got the time.
No, it's 5 out of 6. We're right.
5 out of 6.
So space, time, reality, half of soul, half of mind.
Yes, half of soul, half of mind.
That's
and
4.
Full of everything.
Okay, so 5.
Pretty sure it got everything.
Yeah.
It definitely mentioned everything. I was going to say, mind will be definitely half.
Time stone full.
Time stone full.
Time
Yeah,
stone full.
yeah. Okay.
Yep. So it's
5 out of 6.
5 out of 6. That's pretty strong.
Yeah, strong.
Yeah. It's,
I agree with that rating. That's, by the way, that's not like an ambiguous percentage-wise. That's pretty close.
It's pretty close.
It's not the perfect film, but yeah it's good.
Yeah.
There's times where the Infinity Stone rating will fall apart, but for this movie,
it
worked.
This one, I mean, there's a bit of conflict of interest here as well. We'll talk about it in spoilers in 1 second. So if you guys haven't seen the movie and you care about spoilers, please come back to this point in the episode and we'll talk spoilers. So, spoilers, we'll start with the Space Stone. So the Space Stone is actually physically in this movie.
Yeah, so it's in this movie, so that's why he gets it.
The Tesseract, as it's known, is in this one.
We don't have to go through the whole movie, but there's some things that I wanted to mention. Starting with the Marvel fanfare for this movie, they had a tribute to Stan Lee, which was great.
That was super nice. I wasn't expecting that. It was like almost as if they weren't planning it, but they just did it in the last minute. Because Stanley makes his last cameo, I think, in this film. Is that correct?
No, I still
I
got
think
one
he's...
Oh, one more.
I think he's in Endgame.
Oh, nice.
more. One more, possibly 2 more.
Possibly Far From Home as well.
Yeah. So, no, it was a great tribute. I loved it.
Yeah, and he's in the movie as well, in case you're wondering. So he does have a cameo.
Yes.
So other things I want to mention, Project Pegasus is central to the plot in this movie. And it is mentioned in the Avengers. So it's basically the project about the Tesseract. So that gets a mention. I mean, before we go into towards the end of the movie, was there any other spoilers you wanted to talk?
Should we talk about Easter eggs?
Yeah, we can do Easter eggs. Yeah. So you said you saw some.
Well, the ship that they're flying is a kind of first model Avengers Quinjet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the Quinjet, which they fly around in their
the
flagship.
Quinjet that they fly around is like
interesting.
a first model Quinjet that they're using. Nick Fury loses his eye. Not really an Easter egg. What else is there that... Did you guys pick up on any other Easter eggs through...
With the Nick Fury losing his eye one, there's an interesting thing. So I think it was in Iron Man, or at some point...
Someone I really trust. It's in Winter Soldier.
It's in Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier, yeah. So Winter
says,
Soldier, he says the last
eye.
person he trusted gave him this busted eye. So, that's a goose.
Yeah, so the last person he trusted was the cat.
That's hilarious.
Well, he still keeps it,
good.
so...
The cat's very good.
The cat is very good. We didn't mention the cat. The cat was actually quite good.
I want to know where the cat is, to be honest. I want him in Endgame. He could do quite good in Endgame. Obviously, it has Korath, and it looks like by the end of it, half his face gets blown off.
So Korath the pursuer and Conan the accuser. Did I get that right?
Yeah, we got it this time. Yeah, it's got Ronan before he goes full, I'm a god, whatever.
He looks a bit different in this
Because
one.
he doesn't have the face paint.
That's right. That's what it was.
Yeah, the face paint.
Yeah.
The face paint felt like it was a bit more something like a bit of a
It's because
personal rebellious thing.
In this movie, he's still kind of normal, but once it gets to Guardians, he thinks he's a god.
Yeah,
So
and he
kind of
goes more sort of radical.
I feel like in Guardians he was almost separate from the Scree. Like he wasn't part of the...
No, he's a rogue. He's a rogue.
He's a rogue.
He's a rogue agent. Yeah. And in this one, he's still
part
Kree.
of the Kree, yeah.
So I feel like something must have happened in between then in the Kree civilization. So
Basically,
there was
I think
fracturing.
the
what's that person called? The Great Intelligence.
Oh, the Supreme Intelligence.
Supreme Intelligence
falls. And
falls.
then-
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I think the war ends. I think. I don't think the war's happening anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now that we're on spoilers, there was a bit of dialogue in the film about the Supreme Intelligence showing its true form only to a select few individuals. I was a little bit disappointed we didn't get to see or a hint about its true form, but maybe they might be holding on to that.
Maybe for
later.
future movies, yeah.
Yeah.
Because apparently
I
that
think
was...
the Kree Skrull story will be integral in kind of Captain Marvel future.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends where they take it in terms of sequels. So
There's a couple ways.
at the end of this movie, there's still a big gap between the end of this movie and the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's about...
I think what they could do is probably, for Captain Marvel sequels, just do them between then.
So up to...
What she does between here and
Endgame.
Because there's probably enough stuff, and she's all the way across the other end of the galaxy, so like we wouldn't know what was happening there. So I think that's an option.
Yeah.
Or they could do it post-Endgame.
Yeah.
Plenty of opportunities to throw in small little references to like Guardians of the Galaxy here and there.
Yeah. Or Thor Ragnarok or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the movie that's probably most related to this movie is probably Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And then Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, she's not the first Avenger, because that's Captain America.
Oh, but her name is, her nickname
Is Avenger.
is Avenger.
And that's where Nick Fury gets the idea of the Avengers Initiative. So it was initially going to be called the
Protectors.
Protector Initiative. So
Would have been. I was just saying, would have been hilarious if he was looking at
Protectors.
that
Protectors.
Carol Avenger Danvers or whatever, and he wrote the Carol Initiative or something.
Carols.
We're the Carols.
Carols assemble. Can you imagine Captain America saying that?
Carols assemble.
Oh my gosh!
It's just all the carols in the world. They all assemble. Yeah. I like that. I like the hint at the end where the music hypes up the
The Avengers theme.
the Avengers theme.
Every time the Avengers theme comes on, it's just great. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other things, Clark
Gregg.
Gregg. Yeah. Who plays Agent Coulson.
Yeah,
is in
he's
this.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, very small role, but he's in it for a little bit. Pegasus in this. Anything else that you guys could point out? I'm sure there's a lot of stuff, but I'm blanking. I should have taken notes. I never
Yeah.
taken
There wasn't that much. To be honest, it's very much a standalone movie.
Yes.
Obviously, if you've watched the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, you will enjoy it. But I think you can watch this without that, and you'd still enjoy it.
There was one nice little reference I wanted to show. The final act where they were going through the canyon seemed almost scene reminiscent of Independence Day, when Will Smith was chasing that spaceship through the canyon, shooting it through.
It is quite similar.
And then Carol Danvers dragging Jude Law through, like Will Smith dragging the alien.
Drag the alien. It's
Welcome to
very
Earth.
similar. Yeah.
I felt like that was a direct reference to Independence Day.
That scene actually reminded me of Star Wars Episode 1.
Oh, the pod racing. Now this is pod racing.
Just post that scene. Do you know when Jude Law kind of tells Carol Danvers to like fight him without her powers and whatever.
Yep.
That scene reminded me of that Indiana Jones scene where the guy's like full going with the
And
sword.
then he just gets shot.
And he just shoots him.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. There was actually a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of comedy, but there was comedy in the movie.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like jarring or anything. There was,
I think this is one of the less funny movies of recent times. They've been heavy with comedy.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is probably one of the least comedic movies they've put out at times. I would say probably as funny as Black Panther, maybe.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of humor based around just the setting, especially like the internet disconnecting due to the dial up and all that kind of stuff. I found that funny.
And
Oh,
then
so you were
the-
going to say there was
the
something...
Terminator 2 scene.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's when she steals the clothes off the mannequin and then drives the motorbike away.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that is very
That's
reminiscent
a
of...
Terminator 2 reference.
Yeah, and she's wearing like a leather jacket as well and with the sunnies.
Yeah, yeah. And there was the scene that reminded me of Speed is when they're fighting on the train, because there's a scene at the end of Speed where they're fighting on the top of the train.
Oh, they're on top of the train.
I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
it was
yeah,
on
like-
the bus.
No, there is a part in the train. So
okay.
most of the movie's in the bus, but then they
Yeah.
move on to the train.
And then there was that scene when she falls through the blockbuster. We're talking about this one, and she's like verse to Space Command on
Yeah.
her little wrist communicator. I'm like, that's Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah.
Right? That's just typical.
I mean,
Buzz Lightyear.
there's movies when she drops into the blockbuster. There's movies that she obviously lands in the
She shoots Arnold Schwarzenegger's face in True Lies.
yeah, and I think she landed in the Arnold Schwarzenegger section because all the movies behind her. I noticed this more on the second viewing, but all of them were mostly Arnie's movies.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
There was one when she stops and she looks at one of the VHSs. There, I noticed Hook behind her,
yeah.
the movie Hook. So she must have been in some.
Do you remember the name of that thing that she picked
She
up?
picks up a Kevin Smith movie, I think. Not because I recognized it, but because Kevin Smith put a post up on Facebook saying,
Yeah.
Does this mean I'm in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? So it
Yeah.
must be a Kevin Smith movie.
I think it's an Air Force related movie.
So yeah, it's really like first year rookie Air Force members all trying to
Yeah,
get
I
together.
think it's got Kevin. It's something related to Kevin Smith. There is a Kevin Smith related thing in this movie at some point.
And
Yeah.
there was one nice Shazam Easter egg. So when she's changing the colors of her suit, one of them goes to like a red and yellow color hue, and that is apparently a reference to Shazam.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
The I think it was the neon, the glowing one,
The neon glowy one.
Yeah.
Yep.
which is because a cross comic reference, which is nice. I like that one. And just one last one. So I mentioned the name of Sue DeConnick, Kelly Sue DeConnick, the one who wrote the 2012 Miss Marvel comic reboot. So she was in this film. She was the person who,
The old lady that she punches.
not the old lady, but the first lady she bumps.
Actually, yeah.
The old lady she bumps getting onto the train, the first one, gives her a bit of a shove.
I thought it was the same one.
That's the same lady.
Is it the same lady?
Same
Yeah.
lady.
Oh, okay, yeah,
That's why she realized that it's a scroll
Yeah.
because she bumped into that lady outside.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was her. That was the creator. So
Okay. I thought that was Brie Larson, actually. There was rumors that it was Brie Larson. But it must be the creator.
Brie Larson must be the creator. And Stan Lee's cameo in the same train.
Same
Yes.
train.
So apparently he plays himself because he is reading a script of Mallrats. So he's reading lines from
Oh,
Mallrats.
okay, so that must be the Kevin Smith cameo.
I think Mallrats
Because
was the Kevin Smith
Mallrats
one.
is written by Kevin Smith.
Yeah,
Ah,
released in
okay.
1995, and so he appears as himself in that one, which is the first.
He does, yes.
Yeah.
Stanley plays his own character in Mallrats. And yeah, he's like a Hugh Hefner type character in that movie.
Of course, he is.
Yeah. But yes, okay, that must be the Kevin Smith thing. Don't know which movie she picks up.
I read it this time because the first time it was a bit fuzzy, so I couldn't read it. But this time I actually read it. Something like The Right Moves or something like that. But it looks like an Air Force movie.
Yep.
We can look it up later.
I'll find the name. I'll just blurt it out when I find it. The Right Stuff. That was the movie.
The Right Stuff. That's it.
Right stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
What did I say? Right Moves. I was close.
You're
Close,
close.
very pretty close.
Yeah. I enjoyed the end of the movie where she discovers her powers, and there's a moment which I referred to earlier where it can be interpreted as a feminist piece, but it's not really. It's more about being human and overcoming your weaknesses. So that was really good. But at the end of the movie, basically she leaves the Tesseract on Earth with Nick Fury. So that's
In the cat.
in the cat. So that's a connection to the rest of in terms of Infinity Stone connection. That's a connection to the rest of the movies. But we'll move on to the end credit scene.
Oh, the plot twist. I saw them coming only because in the comics, the Skrulls are the good guys and the Kree are the bad guys.
Okay, so you saw that.
And
Yeah.
everyone on the team with her
Are bad.
guys.
Are bad.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
See, I had no idea about the Kree Skrull War until this movie came along. I only know the Kree were bad from Ronin.
But yeah, the rest of the team as well is all full of bad because it's got what's that guy's name? Korath.
Korath, yeah.
So and Yon-Rogg is Captain Marvel's arch enemy, so that kind of gave it away.
Yeah, so going into not knowing that was a bit of a surprise, but
That actually did surprise me as well.
What, Yon-Rogg?
That I knew, because I knew Jude Law was going to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
So that wasn't as much of a surprise. It was more that the Skrulls weren't bad.
Yeah, but historically, the Skrulls are always the good guys in that war, but they're both bad because they're both aliens. But yeah, and the only thing that did surprise me was that the old lady is Marvel, because because Marvel's usually a young man who has a romantic relationship with Carol Danvers.
Yeah, so they've kind of skipped. There's parts of the comics which are a little bit outdated, so they've skipped that stuff.
Well, given that she sees her when she looks into Supreme Intelligence, she does admire her.
I think more as a mentor.
Had a romantic relationship.
Hey, her sexuality is never mentioned, man. Like, it could be that she's into it.
Well, I'm not saying that she shouldn't do it, but she was like 40 years in senior.
If Marvel was was like a 60-year-old dude, I'm pretty sure everyone would be egging that on in some manner or something.
But yeah, that's probably the one thing that surprised me.
Yeah.
Everything else I kind of saw coming.
I wanted to mention the scene at the end where she does see the Supreme Intelligence in the form of Annette Bening, and the Nirvana song is playing. I just found it funny how Annette Bening kind of dances to it. I just found that a little. I don't know. I chuckled. It was funny.
It just felt like an AI just
She's
going,
like, oh, music.
yeah, this is nice music. It just felt like a little childish computer program going, hey, this is dancing music. I want to dance to it.
So, anything else before we jump to end credits?
No.
Villains aren't that great in this movie as well. I should point that out, the negatives.
I think it's because the person you think is the villain is not actually the villain.
Yeah.
For most of the movie.
Well, Yon-Rogg wasn't great either. I think Jude Law was kind of underused.
He was,
Yeah.
I still think Yon-Rogg was not a villain per se, but one of the agents, one of the characters who was just progressing the plot.
Yeah.
Whereas the main villain...
I think the main villain was Supreme
Intelligence probably.
Which wasn't that great either.
No.
Yeah. But Mendo was good.
Mendo was good, yeah.
Mendo's good.
Mendo was actually funny.
But I can see Jude Law coming back in future movies and being good.
Because he's not dead.
He's not dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be back.
You could also say in a symbolic way that the real antagonist of this film was everything holding Captain Marvel back, even her own inhibitions.
Which I guess was the Supreme Intelligence, because she had that thing.
I knew that was holding her back. I'm like, that's her powers are
she had
coming from that. Yeah.
She had this thing on her neck, which was basically controlling.
Oh yeah, the inhibitor. That was the real antagonist.
Because that's a real antagonist.
Yeah. So once that went, it was she became Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
What I wasn't sure was she actually a captain?
No.
So how does she Captain Marvel?
She's not Captain Marvel yet. She's not Captain Marvel yet.
But the title, but the whole title and the movie title, and her flying through it, and
they never specifically say Captain Marvel in the movie. Well, hints at Marvel, but she's not a captain. I reckon that's in future movies.
Because she looked like she was more junior in terms of where she was.
Well, no, she wasn't in the army. She wasn't in the Air Force. She never flew.
Until that incident.
No, she did fly testing planes,
but not in
battle.
Yes, not in battle.
Yeah, on an actual thing. That's it.
Okay, end credits. So, what happens in the end credits scene is...
I was pretty surprised by this one, actually.
I wasn't, because unfortunately I listened to a plot leak which told me the entire end credits scene. But basically what happens is we flash forward to after Avengers Infinity War, and you see Steve Rogers, Black Widow, and... Who else was there? Mark Ruffalo and Rhodey. Yeah, so they're all there, and they're looking at the little pager that... we didn't mention this, but basically Captain Marvel upgrades an ordinary pager to be an intergalactic pager for Nick Fury, and she tells him strictly only on emergencies. So he didn't think that when New York was getting...
it's like, no guys, this is fine.
New York was getting invaded by aliens. It's like, this is not an emergency.
We're going to get through this. When Ultron was going to destroy Earth. No guys, we got this.
We totally got
this.
When there was a massive meteorite heading towards Wakanda.
No, we got this.
Wait, not Wakanda. Freaking, what was that place? The
Sokovia.
That's when Ultron was going to...
Ultron, yeah.
So apparently she was meant to be in the screenwriting.
She was going to be in Ultron.
She was meant to come in Ultron.
Yeah, she was.
That was camp.
Joss Whedon would be too many characters and didn't want her in it.
No, she was only going to be in the very last scene of Ultron, where they show the new Avengers. Like Captain America's about to say Avengers Assemble. She was meant to just play.
He wanted her to have like a proper intro before just chucking her in the movie.
Yeah, which is fair enough. Yeah.
If she appeared in that, I would have been pissed. Yeah, because she wouldn't have been able to like save anyone. It would have just been like a final act of like,
oh shit, who's that chick?
Who's that? Where did she come from?
What the hell were you doing this whole time?
Yeah.
But yeah, glad they did do that and went this way.
Yeah.
Continue with the end credits.
So basically they have this pager and it stops flashing. So it had the Captain Marvel symbol on it from when Nick Fury pressed it to contact Captain Marvel. So it was flashing and I'm trying to detect where the signal was going to. And it just turned off. And then they're like, what's going on here? Why did it turn off? We need to turn it. And as you know, Steve Rogers, he's an old man. He doesn't know how technology works. So he's just like, yeah, turn it off and turn it on again.
Reboot it.
Yeah. Give it a whack.
So as they were saying that, Black Widow says, you know, turn it on. We need to see where the signal is going ASAP. We need to find out who Nick Fury wanted to contact. She turns around and there is Captain Marvel standing there. And she says, where's Fury? So I was saying before, I would have preferred if Black Widow turns around, she sees Captain Marvel and Captain Marvel goes, it's endgame time.
It's endgame time. As if she already knew what happened. No, I would have preferred it if she turned around and she's like, look at me. I'm the captain now.
Oh no, she's got to say that to Captain America. There's got to be a point in Endgame when she looks at Captain America and says, look at me. I'm the captain now.
We'll talk about this now. So basically, I think she'll know. She won't know any of the other guys, but she'll know who Captain America is. Because
she'll know who. She should know.
She should know who Captain America is.
As in, like, his identity?
Because she'll know who he is. Because
he fought before.
So he would have been.
Oh, as like a veteran World War.
He would have been like he was a historical figure before he resurfaced on Earth.
Yeah.
So she, like, growing up, she probably would have known.
And especially since
she would know who Howard Stark is as well. She probably wouldn't know who Tony Stark is.
She probably wouldn't know. Oh, he was around in the 90s. Yeah.
He wasn't.
She would have known him as the son of.
Yeah.
Not as Iron Man. But she would probably know, for two reasons, she'll know Steve Rogers because probably everyone knows him. And she's in the Air Force. Yeah.
Air Force, not Army.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. She might not. I don't know how she's going to process everyone else.
I think everyone else she wouldn't know.
I think that scene's cut together, not how it's going to appear in the movie. I think it's going to be a bit different.
Well, is it actually a scene from Endgame or is it just made for this movie? Or are they doing what they did with Ant-Man and Civil War? How it's an actual scene?
If you look at how it looks like
it's
the
Russo
brothers shot it.
Yeah, in terms of the color palette and it looks like a Russo.
So I think it's from the movie, but it's cut together in not the way it's going to appear in the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so as well.
I wonder how they were doing those counts. It was like showing the number of people missing in like the millions.
There's just someone counting.
They just got Thor.
They got Thor in the air, and he's counting how many people are down there.
But they're all turned to dust. It's like you're counting who's not.
Yeah, you're counting who's left.
So they've basically gone the opposite way. So they've said how many people there are in that country, and then they count how many people there are.
So each person they count, they subtract that from the population.
Exactly.
That's such a
so they've done a reverse calculation.
They can just calculate who's left, and that number goes up instead of the number of people missing goes up, or some weird calculation. That's so weird.
But I don't know how they would calculate that because it's not like there's a bunch of bodies lying around that they can count.
Or if they know, for example, one of the theories being that the people who have been turned to dust have gone into the Soul Stone. If they somehow can tap into it, but I don't know how they would do that. So
they don't have it though. Thanos has it. Yeah,
that's true.
In terms of the trailers for Endgame, and I think this scene as well,
I don't think they're going to show any Captain Marvel.
No, I think Captain Marvel was actually in those trailers. I think she was in the Super Bowl spot
because there was she might be. She might be that missing person.
Because there was a spot in the Super. If you look at the Super Bowl spot, there's always a sort of a gap. So like they'll all be standing, but there'll be a little gap.
No, but I don't think they're going to replace that in the trailer. They're not going to show anything until the movie.
No, but I think in the movie she'll be there.
Yeah, she'll be there, most probably.
So there's a scene in the Super Bowl spot where they're all looking up.
They're all looking into the sky, and there's like Captain America, Black Widow.
So everyone in this end credit scene was in that scene.
But there was
But there was just a spot which was.
It's like it
a spot enough to fit one person in.
Like it looks like they've just put an abnormally big gap between two people. Like they don't like each other. They're standing further apart.
Right.
What you
It
want-
wasn't just a really bad color corrected Black Panther that was meant to be there. No.
Where is Black Panther?
He's
Oh,
gone.
dead.
He's gone.
Oh, he's
Right,
dead.
yeah.
He's dust.
Yeah.
No. So yeah, it's definitely a
Yeah.
gap.
Or the other option is they're looking up and Captain Marvel's coming down.
Which means that this scene doesn't actually exist in the movie.
Yes.
This end credit scene.
Which they wouldn't do. I think
I
that
think-
somehow.
I think that's not true.
No, I think what they're. This is my theory. Again, this is potential spoilers. It could happen. It could not
Is
happen.
a shooting star and they're making a wish.
Yeah, exactly
that's
that.
exactly-
Yeah.
That's how desperate they've got.
That's what Black Widow's like. It's like, is this going to work? And he's like, it has to work.
Yeah, that's what they were referring to. It's like, if it doesn't work, I don't know what will.
They're all just looking into the sky. It's a shooting star.
Just rock bottom.
They're getting very desperate.
Yeah.
I think what they're looking at is Tony Stark returning to Earth.
Yeah, I think so. But did you hear that all of this is probably going to be the first 20 minutes of the movie?
Yeah, so apparently all the trailers for Endgame are within the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie. And it's a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
So there's so much shit we haven't seen.
At this point, my philosophy with something that big would just be literally go in with no expectations,
Yeah.
and you're going to be like, I've done that whole thing where you just you take a film and you find out all the lore behind it and you try and theorize it, and it ends up destroying your life and disappointing you. The Last Jedi, but I think with this one, it's just going to be I'm going to watch it. There's no point I need to see any trailers or reviews. I'm just going to go watch it.
I don't think I need to watch any more trailers for it either.
Yeah. Well, there's not long left, really, until it comes out.
Actually,
So.
quite soon. Yeah.
The only other
Cat
thing...
throws up the Tesseract.
Yeah, that's the end credit scene. So the cat throws up the Tesseract. The other thing I was going to mention is Captain America is... It's very easy to get them mixed up now because there's two captains. But the Captain America is still bearded in the end credit
Sporting a
scene.
beard. I thought the snap took away his beard, but, you know...
Good with its own living
his
entity.
beard just
So-
disintegrates.
I've got two theories for this. One is that
It's CGI'd back on.
maybe, or he does shave because they're going to battle and he wants to look clean. Or
Yeah.
the other thing is
He has
there's...
the hots for Captain Marvel and wants to look good.
That wasn't one of mine, but
Yeah.
possibility, not a high chance of that happening, but possibility. The thing I was thinking was, I think there's going to be some time travel involved in Endgame, and I think there's going to be parts of it where they go back in time and they need to impersonate themselves in the past. And he's always been clean shaven, so he's going to go back in time, maybe World War II, and he's going to have to replace himself at some stage.
Oh, that's technical. Time travel is always really complicated.
Yeah,
Especially as a plot
I hope they
device.
simplify it. If you think about too much, time travel can fuck with you. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we saw Doctor Strange hand in the time stone apparently without any spells, so we don't know what happened. Then again, we don't know what he saw in the 14 million possibilities, so he couldn't do anything.
There's also a theory that he lied, and there's actually more possibilities than that, but he needed to motivate Tony Stark enough to do something in the next movie.
Well, what a bastard. If that's true.
All right, anything else? I think we've pretty much...
Pretty good wrap up of the film. Yeah, if
pretty
you
well covered it.
if you're on the fence on to whether or not to go see it, I recommend go see it, form your own opinion.
So unlike our previous episode where you joined us on The Nun, where us two we didn't enjoy the movie, but you mildly enjoyed it. I think we're all on the same page here. I think it's a good movie. Stay away from all the agendas that people have about this movie. Just watch it with an open mind. You'll have a good time.
Yeah, it's a good watch.
Okay, that was Captain Marvel. Get back to Who Am I?
Yep.
All right, so I'll refresh your memory. I'll read out the question again.
This one's tough.
So, who am I? I was born...
Still think I know it.
Okay, we'll see. You better not say Kang, though.
I was actually going to say Kang first.
So, who am I? I was born in a gypsy camp in a tiny kingdom located in the Balkan Mountains of Eastern Europe. My parents were both killed in my hometown when I was a child, and since then I vowed to seek vengeance on the world for the death of my parents. Later on in my life, I found a chest of magical artifacts that belonged to my mother, and I realized that she was a witch. I developed my immense talent in sorcery and also science, which eventually won me a scholarship to a school in the US. Determined to contact my mother in the hereafter, I invented an interdimensional communication device. However, there was an error in my calculations which led to the machine exploding and scarring my face. After that incident, I made my way to Tibet, where an order of monks helped me forge a metal mask to cover my face. Then returned to my hometown and overthrew the monarch and made myself the king. I continued to invent many devices as king, including a time machine. I am 6 feet 2 inches tall and 255 pounds in weight. Who am I? So we'll start with your guess, Bhaskar.
Okay. Just going off the Middle European heritage and the metal mask, I'm going to make a guess as to Victor Doom.
Victor Von Doom. I
Victor
reckon
Von Doom.
It's the smartest character in the Marvel universe.
Is he more intelligent than Mr.
Reed
Fantastic?
Richards, it's
That's always contested.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's Victor Von Doom. Yeah.
You are correct. So it is Dr. Doom.
Nice.
Dr. Doom. So I left out a couple of details in the Who Am I, because sometimes if I did divulge the details, it might give it away. So he comes from a tiny kingdom called Latveria,
Yeah.
which he then becomes the king of later on. And there's some more details about how his parents were killed. So his mother was killed when pretty much he was a baby. His father was...
Stark.
I don't know if there's...
It's not. I made that up.
And his father was a gypsy, and he was given the task of curing cancer for the Baron of Latveria's wife, and he couldn't do it, and the Baron killed his father.
Right.
And then that's why he went specifically back to that town to become the king.
And also, he can do all the shit he wants now, and then he can't get arrested.
Yeah, because it's some
democratic. It's like you can't go to. You can do whatever you want in America, and then he could go back to his country, and they can't come and arrest him there.
Yeah,
because he's like the president of it.
Yeah. And obviously, I left out details of his relationship with Reed Richards
and the Fantastic Four.
And now that you mention it, we were talking about how Doctor Strange was going into all these possibilities, different universes, and which ones they would survive in. That entire little thing was apparently inspired off of one of the Galactus Wars comics, where it was the Silver Surfer, Galactus, Doctor Doom trying to fight for the survival of the Earth. Doctor Doom finds somehow his way into the Black Panther mythological world with the jaguars and shit. Mm-hmm. And he talks to the god.
Oh, as in the place where Black Panther goes to meet his father.
Yeah. The afterlife place.
Yeah.
Dr. Doom finds his way there, speaks to the jaguar god to find out how to save the world because it's being under the threat of Galactus, about to destroy the whole galaxy or something. And he's told that there's only one possibility in which the Earth can survive, and that's under his rule. That's why he's always trying to take over the world to sustain it. But apparently that was what inspired this whole...
He's a classic character that's... he wants to overthrow everything and rule the world. But if there's a bigger threat, he'll team up with the good guys to save it. So he's a good character. Hope they bring him into the MCU.
That's why I quite enjoyed Rise of the Silver Surfer. That was actually a good film. Before the MCU reboot and just didn't acknowledge it. I thought that was a pretty damn good film.
I haven't seen it in a very long time, so I don't even remember it.
Yeah, I've seen it in a while.
It's a very twisted storyline.
Yeah.
All right, so that was the first one. It's the second one we've done, but that was the first one you've got right.
Is it Kang?
One day we'll do Kang, and I'm guessing that you won't guess Kang when we actually do Kang.
When you do Kang, I'll get Kang.
Is it Korg?
Before we wrap up the show, we'll ask the 3 questions of the guest that we've asked previous guests. When you came on, we actually didn't ask you these questions, so we'll ask you them this time.
Oh, okay.
So, who is your favorite superhero?
Definitely Batman, and he's a superhero in the sense that he's the world's greatest detective.
Yep, good answer. No arguments there.
Better not deny.
Who's your favorite supervillain?
That's a tough one.
Kang.
I'd have to go with the General Zod. He's the archetypal villain, and he's actually world-ending powerful. I think I resist the temptation to say Joker because he's just a maniac. But yeah,
I thought you would say Joker.
I thought you'd say Joker as well. Okay.
Yeah, he's good, but I think he's written into that. He's almost unbeatable. And I just hate the fact that he can't just be killed easily. Because someone doesn't want to kill him. Guess who?
And what is your favorite superhero movie?
The Dark Knight.
Thought you would say The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Went to watch it for Tarun's birthday, 2008 Knox.
That's right. Yeah,
that was that's still the highlight.
Good choices.
Just waiting for the day someone says Kang.
Just wait for the backstory to come out. That's it.
Okay, I think that brings us to the end.
Laters. That's it.
Before we let you go, I guess if you want to ask us a question or you have a comment about what we've said in this review, we've said a little bit of controversial stuff with you about DC and other stuff.
What did you say about DC?
You just said DC fanboys. I think we're gonna get some hate mail.
Well, everyone knows that. Yeah, there's Marvel fanboys that are stupid as well.
Yeah,
it goes both ways.
All fanboys are.
You've just doubled the amount of complaints you're gonna get.
and
We've just lost all our listeners.
Let's add Star Wars fanboys to that as well.
Oh no!
Oh boy!
Yeah. Okay. If people want to contact us, how do they do that?
So we got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and email. So 4 main kind of social media. So we're at cognitive recalibration podcast at gmail.com. We should have really made that shorter because that's long. And we've got cognitive recalibration at Facebook and Instagram, and at C recalibration for Twitter.
Yep. And we're now on all podcasting platforms, so you can find us anywhere. And if you do enjoy our content and our discussions, please do give us a subscribe and make sure you do like our Facebook page, because we're doing a lot of our updates and in terms of what we're up to and what episodes are coming up. We update all of that on our Facebook page. And also, if you have any friends that might be interested in this podcast as well, please do tell them about it and also invite them to like the Facebook page. That's the show.
Yeah,
so,
get on that social media, folks.
Yeah.
Let us know what's happening and how we can
Give me
how
your
can talk
hate
more.
mail.
Give us your hate mail. That's the easiest way to pitch publicity. Screw it. Throw in the Star Wars fans in there. Come at me.
Just everyone.
Just everyone. I said Last Jedi, so there's going to be people coming
everyone.
Yeah, and as always, thanks guys for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, so
Thanks for coming on.
thanks for coming back on. It was great to have your insights, and so you've done some research as well, which is nice. Some of it
More than I did.
Yeah, more than the co-host does.
I researched Kang, but he didn't come on.
And we'll definitely get you back on at some stage. Maybe it might be sooner than later. So we'll
Spoilers.
yeah. So thank you.
No worries, man. Thanks you guys. Thanks. Have a good one, and yeah, looking forward to the next podcast.
All right. See you guys. We'll see you in another episode. We don't know what we're going to do next, but we'll let you know.